Does human design come from the devil? That's the question that we're going to be covering. So, earlier this year, I did an interview series called Unconventional Marketers, and I interviewed several entrepreneurs, all from different backgrounds, but each one of them was doing something that I felt was pretty amazing. So, I just reached out to these people, got them on the series, interviewed them, asked them questions about how they were doing things in their business, how they marketed themselves. And at the very end of each interview, the question I asked was whether they believed in astrology, human design, whether they even knew about it, and if so, what their understanding of that, how that played a role in their business. Like, did it help to know their human design type? Did it help to know their astrology chart and all that stuff? So what I found, and I interviewed 8 people. My goal was 10, but I only got to 8. A few people canceled on me. But I interviewed 8 people, and not one of them even knew anything about human design. Obviously, they've all heard something of astrology, but most of them weren't familiar, except for one, which was the very first person who I interviewed, Stephanie Aukus, and she's a PR specialist, but she also has a strong human design background. So she mixes those two together. So she was the only one who knew about human design and believed in it. Everyone else didn't know their human design type. They weren't opposed to knowing it. They didn't doubt it, but they didn't even know about it. And yet they were still able to create a successful business on their own terms. So I thought that was really interesting. Now, the topic of this video, does human design come from the devil? If you guys have researched this system, it was created by this dude named Ra. And he passed away a while ago, but he apparently had this voice sort of download all this information into his awareness, his brain, whatever. And he basically created the human design system out of it. It's very intricate, very detailed. But here's what I've noticed. And of course, I did 2 interviews a couple years ago where I was talking about my experience as a projector, which is a human design term. And I was basically saying, well, that's helpful to know that I'm a projector. And there were a few helpful things that I took from that system. But now, fast forward 2 years later, I have a different opinion on human design. I have a different perspective on it. And here's the perspective. When I go and I listen to this guy named Ra, at first, he has that very hypnotic, slow voice that lures you in and it almost hypnotizes you in a way. But as I'm listening, I was listening to something where he was describing the raves, which I don't want to get into that, but it was really weird to me and it didn't make me feel at peace. And the more I researched it, the more I wanted to punch this guy in the face. Now, he's gone, but I'm like, why would you tell people that starting in 2027, humans are going to just be pretty much, sounds like autistic, sounds like, birth defects, but he's calling them the raves. He's saying that these people are going to be born without the ability to connect with the rest of us. So even if that's true, even if that's going to happen, it's almost like, why would you tell people that? Why would you not give people a message of hope and inspiration? Focus on what you can actually do. Why are you instilling fear around this supposed new generation, this new species of humans, however he describes it? It was really weird stuff. And as I was sort of studying it, I was like, why am I actually studying this? First of all, it's just pure curiosity. But does it actually contribute to the growth of my business, the forward progression of my life? Does it make me a better person to know about this really weird, twisted vision that this guy had? No, it does not. And then when I go back and I look at those interviews that I did with these people that are pretty successful, and I say, okay, not one of them, except for one, knew anything about human design, and they were able to be successful, and they're super focused, and they don't know anything about their type, right? Is it necessary for the rest of us, for everyone, to know their human design type? Is it necessary for us to study human design? And I've come to the conclusion that the answer is no. So I've changed my mind on this, because years ago, my answer would have been yes. Years ago, I was a big fan of it, and I was like, yeah, it feels really interesting. Like, it's interesting. So just because something is interesting doesn't make it valuable and doesn't make it helpful or healthy. Just because something is interesting to you, you have to actually look at, how does this fit into what I want to create? So my vision is, I really like working with people to help bring out the best in them. I think that every person has unique gifts to offer to the world, and they're not going to offer it to the entire world, but they're going to offer it to people in their world. So everybody has unique perspectives, talents, stories, backgrounds, and all of that can be valuable. All of that can be made valuable. So in my mind, my vision is like, someday every single person on this planet, every human being, is just going to be living that value. Like, they're going to be building themselves up. They're going to be just doing things that make them feel and act more valuable, right? So that vision is completely different from the vision that Ra had, where he was talking about all these like fucked up people that can't relate to anybody. Like, that's pretty sad. And I'm like, who is this guy? Like, if we look at him as a person, who he was, first of all, do you want to be like him? Do you want to live the life that he lived, right? Do you want to have the characteristics and the qualities that he had? Personally, for me, that's no. I would be more drawn to like someone who is athletic, someone who is physically active, someone who was positive. He had like this negative slant on life. So in my mind, that almost invalidates everything about his system that he created. But so yeah, I've officially changed my mind on it. And I was also talking to a friend of mine who is a like biblical, I want to say scholar, but she's very well versed in the Bible, and I just love her wisdom and her perspectives on it. And she's able to quote Bible verses that say that anything astrology, anything divination, you should just stay far away from it. Why? Because you're turning to something that's not God. You're turning to something that's not the direct source. You're turning to something that's just a secondhand like idea. So it can lead you off track. And I was thinking about that. I was like, every minute, every hour that someone spends studying human design, trying to understand it, trying to interpret all the gates and all the channels and all the meanings and the arrows, every minute they spend looking at that is minutes that they don't spend on their business, on their life, on their personal development. Now, you might look at it and say, well, I am developing myself by studying this system. This system feels really good to me. It feels, lights me up. A lot of people say that, and I get that. But when you look at the two groups of people, so people that hardcore study human design, follow it, and then you take like people that I interviewed who are just making sales left and right, totally killing it, like doing really cool things in their business. If you compare these two groups, you're going to see like one group that isn't living up to their full potential because they're busy making excuses, justifications on why they're not going for it in their business. And they're using human design to rationalize that. And then this other group doesn't even know anything about human design, and they're fine. They're not in trouble. They're not missing anything. They're not worried about recessions. They're not living with their parents in their 30s. Hello. They're just focused on business, marketing, sales, right? So you compare those two groups, and to me, it just feels more and more like human design is kind of a waste of time. Especially, I know projectors love hearing it. Like, we love to hear that you don't have to work. You don't have to work as hard. You should rest a lot. Well, let me tell you something, because I'm a projector under this system. My life before I developed a work ethic and after I developed a work ethic are completely different. And I can tell you, when I am doing work that I love, that's aligned with my purpose in life, it doesn't feel like work. When I did work that I didn't care about, absolutely, it felt like work. So I don't necessarily believe that projectors shouldn't work as much as they can. Now, apparently through this system, our work is very potent, and that could possibly be true. But if it was that potent, like, why are you only making the amount of money that you're making? You know what I mean? Like, if it was potent, your work, if it was super valuable and it only took you like 1 hour to do it, but it was worth $10,000, why don't you have the $10,000? So it's just something to ponder on. A lot of people will get very triggered by that, and they'll say, oh, it's not all about money. But it is. Like, a lot of this is about money. The Bible talks about money lots of times. I don't know the number. It's like 2,000 times or something. I could be wrong. But it talks a lot about money. Finances, prosperity. It says, like, we need to be good stewards of our money. So obviously money is very important to life. And a system that is like encouraging people to work less, produce less, rest more, it's just a little suspect. I think they call that sus, right? This new generation. So it's a little sus. But what makes it sus to me is that my successful interviewees, most of them did not know about or care about human design or astrology. So that's interesting. Does it come from the devil? Well, ultimately everything was created by God, including the devil. So even the devil's creations, even the devil's mischief, all of it was created by God in some way. So there's this saying that I love, God is good all the time. So even when there's chaos and evil and crazy stuff going down, God is good all the time, which means something good can come out of that. So I'm going to choose to believe that even if the devil did create this human design system to throw everybody off and to distract everybody from their real work that they're supposed to be doing and to seduce people on this other path, like, even if he did create that, okay. It's like, okay, just learn from it and then get back on your path. I have another friend who's also an astrologer. I have to bring her up because she has amazing perspectives, and I love just talking to her. And I don't really believe in the astrology part, but I just like hearing her feedback on it. And she uses astrology as a context to give me guidance. So it's like my biblical friend, my astrology friend. I have a mind where I'm able to like accept two different perspectives without imploding, and it's fine, right? Both of these people are completely different. They both have completely different gifts that they're bringing to the world. And then I, of course, get to be on the receiving end of some of those gifts. So Yes, human design. Oh man, and you know what's so funny? All you projectors, I get so many emails from projectors that find my videos and hear my interviews, and I'm glad that you find me. Those interviews were recorded in like 2020, and the last 2 years have been just, I've changed. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, I've changed my views. A lot of that was when I still lived in Colorado, and I still hadn't like fully figured out my workflow. So it's just, yeah, it's just that my perspectives have changed. So anytime I am tempted to go and study human design, I'm going to stop myself and I'm going to say, get back to work. Work is what pays the bills. Work is what helps people. Like, I don't think it actually helps other people. For me to study human design any further, I kind of have a general grasp of everything, and I've taken good ideas, but that's about where it needs to end. You know, I don't need to study it any further. And if you're watching this video, you probably don't need to study it any further as well. So I know this is very controversial and this contradicts some of the stuff I said before, but that is where I'm at, and I had to share it with you. And like, my hair is really not this blonde. It's just the light. I don't know why it looks this blonde. It's actually dark. So anyways, yeah, the light can really change how something looks, can it?